You're listening to the Gender Reveal Party podcast. I'm your host, Jay Pryor. This isn't your usual gender reveal party. There will be no baby sex parts. This is the real reveal, where we reveal gender through stories of brave humans willing to share their lived experience. Enjoy the listening. I sure enjoy making it. Welcome again to the Gender Reveal Party. It's my great pleasure to be here today with my friend, Victoria Taurean. Hi, friend.
Hello. Always
Hi.
good to see you.
It is always good to see you, and it's been a minute. I don't think I've seen you since pre-pandemic, right?
I haven't seen a lot of people since pre-pandemic.
Amen, right?
Yeah,
We're
it's
staying
kind of
close
made
to
me a
home.
bit disconnected, but
Yeah. And, all the stuff that goes with that, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's been pretty interesting. So thanks for coming on the Gender Reveal Party, where we are not revealing baby sex parts, but this is the real reveal, where we're revealing gender in a powerful way. And you have such a powerful story. And I know that you also are someone who did a One Human show. And I wanted to have people get a chance to get to know you. So you want to take a second and introduce yourself?
Sure. So I am Victoria Taurean. That's all going to be legal here in a few weeks. I actually had a lawyer and did all that. It was actually free through KU
Nice.
law. So they are doing that. They're helping trans people change their name for free right now. So shout out to them. And born and raised here in Lawrence, Kansas. I went to Free State, graduated in 2008. My birthday was yesterday, so
Oh,
I'm
happy
still trying to wrap
birthday.
my brain around aging every minute. Uh, and I went to NYU. I was in New York for school for 4 years, stayed there for 5 years, moved back home momentarily, and then went west. I went and lived in Los Angeles and had a pretty disastrous time, which is what the majority of my one woman show is. However, during that time, I met a lot of trans women who, prior to that experience, I probably would not have associated with, because I admit I grew up very Southern Baptist, and although I was presenting as a male at the time, I had a bit of transphobia. And I think it's important that trans people or trans thinking maybe that they are people know that that's common. And
Very
so,
common.
and you internalize it, and but they really exposed me to the life of a trans woman, and really showed me different examples, and it allowed me to see that I could be myself, and be trans, which makes it more of myself. So I came back home after that, and home here in Lawrence, Kansas. The best place to transition. And I did my social transition starting in 2016. And since then did a one woman show that was produced by the Lawrence Arts Center here in town. That was during the pandemic and was surprisingly extremely successful, because they were very innovative, and instead of a live show, because we couldn't have an audience at the time, they actually invested in a lot of camera work. And so we had Tamia Hearn Feldman, who's a good friend of mine, also grew up here in Lawrence, and such a such a great advocate for the queer community. She actually directed the show, and it was very successful, and I was amazed and just happy to like be able to tell my story. And even my mom, who I have had ups and downs with,
Sure.
saw the show and said and praised me for it in her own way.
Yeah.
So yeah, and since then, I've continued my transition, and I'm so glad because I feel like I'm nearly to that point where my dysphoria has gotten so much smaller. And it's something that I've obviously had all my life, and I chose dissociation most of the time instead of facing it. And so, now that I've been able to actually transition, and pretty seemingly, which has been really great. Apparently, everyone knew I was a woman before I did. And so I, have a lot of support. Not a ton from my family, but a lot from the community here in Lawrence, which is awesome. And of course, from my friends who live across the country, who went to school with me in New York and now are in LA or Chicago. I went to school for drama, so I'm an actress by training, which is why I guess they gave me a show. But I
Of
wrote
course.
it, and I was really proud of it. And it's been probably the highlight of my artistic endeavors. So
Nice.
then I
Well, I
met
know how much
you.
work goes into that.
It was a lot of work. It was a lot of going back and remember traumatizing experiences and having to put them on paper and then having to perform them every day, multiple takes, and it was very emotionally draining at times. But at the same time, I'm just so grateful that I was able to get through it and that I had so much help and support on set. And afterwards, when it came out, it was just, I got such a great response.
Yeah,
I've been very
brilliant.
lucky.
Right
Been
on.
very lucky.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. There's a couple things that when you were talking, I wanted to go back to the transphobia because I think it's so important for people to get this. The loudest, maddest people at us are the queerest, transest people,
Absolutely.
and they don't know it. And it's so interesting because when I was a young person, now I was raised country, right? So I was raised in the southeast corner of the state, right next to Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri. So we
Lucky
call it the
you.
four-state area down there. And
Gosh.
I grew up in the poorest county in Kansas. So it was a little rough town down there. And
Mm.
I used to say I wouldn't walk across the street to piss on a queer if they were on fire.
Wow.
I
And
called a
see,
radio. I called a radio station to say all gay people should be shot when I was 14 years old.
so I'm not alone.
No,
It's
I
that.
hated the gays. And after coming out, I realized, and anybody with a brain understands how that level of resistance, what you push against, is obviously something that is coming for you.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah. If
so
it's that important for you to speak out against, you might be try
you
looking
might want to look
inner.
there. Right.
And explore it a bit more.
Right.
Before I had education about trans people, I, just only knew trans people from what I saw on television growing
Right.
up, which was not great. It was,
Right.
Jerry Springer, I'm having an affair with the trans woman, and then they
Right.
get in a fight with the cis woman, and
Mm-hmm.
and she pulls off a wig. It's
Yes. Yeah. All that
I
mess.
mean, never something positive,
Mm-mm.
never seeing them excel, and never feeling like in retrospect, looking back, that that was a possible life to live and have
Right.
it be fulfilling.
Right.
So yeah, no, of course I mean, and that happened with, you know, all parts of the queer community, they had to go through, they went through that phase, and in media, and when people started coming out. And so even when I was going to come out as a gay male, it was still very scary,
Yeah.
less scary than it was to even imagine being trans at that time.
Right.
Because I came out in high school, so it was like early 2000s, mid 2000s, and I thought, oh Jesus.
You're a
Forgive me
baby.
for using the name.
Now, I,
Thank
on the
you.
other hand, am a transpaw and an elder gay. And, you know,
An
I feel
amazing
like
one.
part of why we need to be out is because we need to show those younger, continue to show the younger generation that you can be a trans human and be thriving and be. I have a lot of parents come to me because I have my own business and I have kids and I have a spouse that I love. And, you know, I have a lot of parents are like, oh, you know, I thank God, because I didn't know that was possible. Because if you just watch
Mhm.
TV, we're going to end up under a bridge. You know what I
That's
mean?
where my
You
mom
know,
still thinks,
still think you're going to
you
end up
know,
under a bridge. Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
And my sisters too. I mean, I have two older sisters. Now my younger sister's not she's so much more open, and you know, she was part of the generation that came up seeing more diversity on television, film and television and literature, and you know, she
Yeah.
loved, you know, there's like Laverne Cox now and Janet Mock
Right.
now and
Right.
so many amazing Black trans women and MJ Rodriguez. And so she is a lot more open and understanding.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, my older sisters and my mother, you know, they still have Jerry Springer going
Sure.
on in their mind.
Sure. And what I can tell you is being someone who's been out as long as I have is, I mean, I had family members that just couldn't handle it either. And now it's like over time, I mean, 10 years goes by and you're still the same human,
Yeah,
same woman doing all the things. They'll get over it. And then you'll have nieces and
I
nephews
agree.
born who won't know you as anything other than Aunt
Yes,
Tori.
I do have nieces and nephews now, and they were like my oldest niece is just amazing. She just turned 13, but she's so great with my pronouns and with calling me Tori, you
Right.
know.
Sure.
And I just love that, you know.
Hmm.
It's not unusual. She has trans friends at school at
Yeah.
13.
Sure. Oh, God. My kid
You
is
know.
out at 11 and has queer
It's
trans kids.
amazing.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, part of the reason why I got brave enough to come out as trans was watching shows like I'm Jazz. I think that that's the name of the show that one of the first shows that showed a younger girl going through transition from age, you know, like 3 or 4. Her parents let her
Hmm.
kind of explore her gender
Hmm.
identity, and I started to break down those walls. That's when I
Hmm.
started to break down those walls. And then when I met all the trans women in Los Angeles and saw their courage and heard their stories, it and saw other images in the media. And I'll admit, even Caitlyn Jenner coming out was a huge pivotal moment for me.
Sure.
That actually really got me over the last hump of kind of fear,
Yeah.
you know. And so I had someone to say, well, look, you know, the
Right.
Wheaties box lesbian
Right.
is a
Is
trans
trans.
woman,
Right.
you know, and
Yeah.
so if she can be trans, why can't I? You
Yes.
know?
And that whole piece of it not being possible is, I think, where everybody starts from, is that level of, I just don't see I don't, it's not even possible. I felt that way as a young lesbian in the 80s. I mean,
Sure.
there was nobody who was, you know, if that was
Yeah,
talked about, it was talked about from a perspective of somebody being demented or, you know, like
yeah.
having real bad mental problems. So,
I watch a lot of period pieces because as an actress, I went to school and studied classical theater, and so I was in the 1500s for 4 years. I still don't know much about technology now, uh, or anything new age. I'm still reading Shakespeare at night, but I watch a lot of pieces, and it's so interesting because now they want to include gender non-conforming characters just so people could see how they were treated at the time that whatever you know, that the show takes place, the show or film takes place. And I'm watching Downton Abbey right now, and one of the main characters is a closeted homosexual, and you know, we see him, you know, try and make relationships work, and how awful that he's treated. And you know, I think that that was important for them to put in specifically because they want people to know how much work it took for us to get to this space.
Right. Yeah.
You know, where my
Yeah.
whole room can be pink and I can be myself and I can go to the grocery store and they will say, "Have a good day, ma'am." You know, that feels
Right.
so good. It
Right.
feels so
Yeah, it
good. And
does.
it feels so right.
Yeah,
So,
so right. Well, so the other thing that you mentioned that I want to make sure let's spell this out for people is dysphoria. And because the word comes up sometimes, and some because we're trans non-binary humans, we know this language. And so I know you're talking about body dysphoria, but when you're
mhm,
talking, you just say the word dysphoria, people, I think some of the cis het people in the audience are going to be like, what does that mean?
I'm
And
sure.
so I thought it would be to dive into body dysphoria, because body dysphoria is so interesting. So for those of you who are listening, people like me and Tori, there's parts of our bodies that don't work. And not work like functionally, but it doesn't work for me. So for me, it doesn't work for me to have breasts. So I would get, even, as my young butch self, I remember getting myself all dressed up to go out to the club and feeling like I was looking fly. And this is back in the 80s, right? So I've got my 501s on and I've got my, you know, I've got, and I'm feeling all fly. And I go look in the mirror and then there's those damn tits staring back at me. And it's
Yeah.
like, man, and it's so deflating. And it just feels like, dude, that doesn't belong there. Like it just
Right.
doesn't belong there. And for me, it's been interesting because I've always been pretty fluid, but the breasts have always been a thing. Like from the
Mhm,
time I was in sixth grade and they came in, it was like, this
mhm.
sucks. I hate this.
Yeah,
The
no,
best day ever was when I got rid of those. Like it was just the best day ever, and I'll never regret it. And I go into a little bit of dysphoria because I love being off testosterone. I went off testosterone in 2018, as you know, and I really love being off it for a number of reasons. Um, and I have a little bit of butt hip issue when that's stuck,
mm,
because the butt's in charge, right? The
mm.
lady butt's in
Always.
charge. Lady butt's in charge. So
Yes, it
I have different
is.
pants, and 5 to 5 pounds makes a difference, right?
Yes, it really does.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness. I'm dealing with that right now. The pandemic, I think everyone has their
Oh.
pandemic pounds, but
I
I'm like,
had like 40.
yeah, for a trans person, it can really make a huge, huge difference. I mean,
Right.
you know, the fact that my breasts have grown so much because I've gained weight has been the only thing that's been great about gaining weight,
Right. It is a great thing
you
for women.
know.
If you want big boobs, gain weight.
Yeah, as a because and that's my dysphoria, I would say it's really started as young. I mean, I was in grade school. I mean, there's pictures of me when I was a toddler with very long hair. My mom got very upset that people mistook me for a girl so often to her. And so she cut off all my hair. And since then, hair has been such a issue with me. And I feel like that's probably the last thing that I'm really working on is, growing out my hair as long as I want it to be and being able to be, long hair and free. And so, but yes, no, when I started hormones, it was amazing that I felt the way I did about my breast because I was so scared that I wasn't going to be happy, that I was like making a huge mistake that was irreversible at that point. But when I did, well, I mean, I could have had top surgery or something afterwards, but surgeries are not easy to get,
No, no,
and
no.
so, yeah, no, and when I did start getting breast, it, like we said, just felt right, and I was just so happy, and finally, I felt fly because used to go to places when I was still kind of, I would just say queer. I didn't really have an idea of a title. And I would get into clubs for free because it was like ladies' night. But I always had these really tight clothes on being in New York City. And it's around 2011, 2012. But I was flat chested and, it always felt like a giveaway. And so I had all this dysphoria that people were looking at my chest and they were going to know I was a boy at that time. And then and then I have to worry about my safety. And,
Right.
it was
Yeah.
just like so much and
Well,
that goes into dysphoria.
right. And the opposite for a trans man, especially if a trans man that cannot, even if they get on hormones, if they cannot afford to have the top surgery, then there's always that
Absolutely.
giveaway and that always that feeling like someone's going to know. And I mean, it's so uncomfortable. I've seen so many trans guys, even go on testosterone. And in my mind, they're passing, they're fine, but they have that hypervigilance. And then they
Yeah,
have their chest done. And then it's like, like
I
they're just
know. I know.
puffed up. They're just
I'm in
like
so
feeling
many
like a
support groups
million.
like that.
Yeah,
And it's inspiring to hear that as well. But yeah, no, I think part of it for me is that I take for granted that because I'm trans and when I meet a trans man who has not had top surgery yet, I know automatically to identify them as the gender that they prefer to be
right.
known as. But I can totally understand that being a giveaway in cis circles and in this cis society would be just constantly overwhelming. And even if you bind, I'm sure it would be overwhelming because for
Yeah,
me, having had a penis, I was very, concerned about that area.
sure.
At all times, I was not wanting a bulge to impress people. I was
Right.
doing just the opposite, but I never actually, used anything to hide it, except for clothes. I would
Mhm.
wear longer clothes, longer shirts, and, it, it really is, that when we are identified in public as trans and clocked as black, trans women say to each other, there's no other thing that hurts more if people don't than respect our gender that we are, because that can change a moment for sure.
100%. And we know, and, especially Black trans women, right? You are a target, right?
Yeah,
And it's
unfortunately.
terrifying. And we know the statistics. So we don't, we can't, you can't play in there. Like you got to be
20
safe.
plus black women have been murdered this year already.
Right.
So
It's
yeah,
usually an average of 2.5 a month,
yeah.
right?
And many of them have been in Kansas City,
Yeah.
so not even
Right.
far away.
Right.
So for me, it's been very I don't know. I I have this idea that I'm okay a lot because I do pass, as my cis girlfriends say. They say, "Oh, don't be afraid, you'll be fine." But as soon as I get into a environment where I could tell they would be hostile towards someone like me, I immediately still become very, very insecure, even now post, you know.
I
So
don't think that ever goes away. I mean,
I don't know that it
I've been out
does.
for 30 some years, and I mean I'm still somewhat hyper vigilant if I'm around a certain
Well, you have to be.
and some of it's me stereotyping people too. You know what I mean? It's like
Very
me,
true.
but and it still doesn't mean that it doesn't happen.
Right.
Traveling
I'm
through certain
pleasantly
areas of our country
surprised.
with all the
I'm
Confederate
pleasantly
flags.
surprised when I mistake when I make that mistake
Me
to
too. Me too.
assume, you
Happy.
know.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. So, is there anything you're up to now that you'd like to share? I know we want to make sure to have people know where to find you on Instagram and all the things in case you're doing
yeah,
shows. What's going on with you?
I'm at Victoria Taurean on Instagram and on Facebook. I think and on TikTok. And is there any other? There's another one, right?
I don't know.
Oh, Snapchat.
Snapchat, Clubhouse.
Right. So I'm on all of those. I'm not the most active, but I do get on to check in and see how my friends around the world are doing. And right now I'm writing. I
Oh,
actually
good.
just saw one of the producers from the art center the other day at the grocery, and I was like, I'm writing right now, and she was like, please send me excerpts. Let me know. This one is not a play. I've been wanting to do a book for a
Oh,
while now.
nice.
But a book of short stories based on my trans experience, whether it be with dating, with family. I just have so many like stories that are
Sure.
hilarious and
Right.
emotional and, you know, can be upsetting, but you learn from them
Yeah,
and they help other people.
for sure.
So I'm heading in that direction, but that's how my one woman show started out too, as a book. So we never know how it's going to end, but something will be coming. So
Nice.
I'm applying for grad school as well. And so I don't know where I'll be in the next year or so, but I'm hoping that I'll have finished another piece of work, had it produced, done, and be off to school some at one of my choices. So, which
Nice.
I'm not going to say now because I would jinx it. I'm
Yeah,
afraid.
no, no, no. We won't know. We'll have to follow up later on that.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I had my surgery, and so I'm recovering. And
Nice.
it's a long, hard recovery, I will say. So it's great. I have so much support in the community.
Yeah.
It's like I remember getting your message about doing this, and that day I was actually feeling really kind of distant from everyone because
Yeah.
I was, at home and, you know, I can't leave the house because I have to, do all this work that you have to do post, um, and it made me remember that you were there for me. So I really
Yay. I'm
appreciate you
so
reaching
glad.
out.
Absolutely.
It really
Absolutely.
helped.
Well, I remember when I did my show, how supportive you were. And like, it's
Yeah,
just I don't
loved
know.
it.
I love to make sure that we're all supporting each other in the community and especially those of us that are right here in our own town. And it's like our
Absolutely. There's
community is
so
pretty
many more.
small.
It is, but it's like I realize there's more than just me. Although, it is hard to find another Black trans woman in Lawrence, I will admit.
It's
And
true.
so I have had
It's hard to find
to.
another black trans person or another black person in Lawrence, let alone a black
Right, I
trans
know. I
woman.
go into a lot of circles and I
It's
like
like, what?
preparing for anything is like me putting on my clothes, but also having to put on that idea that I am probably going to walk in a space where I am othered.
Hmm.
And if people know, or if people find out that I'm going to have to work hard to make them comfortable with the idea of who I am, even though I'm uncomfortable because now they're uncomfortable.
Right.
So it is a bit of a balancing act, and it can be performative. But I hope that as time goes by, I lose the sense that I have to do that. That is my
I hope you do
biggest
too.
goal, is just that I can go into a space and be myself, and whether or not people know I'm trans makes no difference to me, and I don't have to try to make sure that they're comfortable with the idea. If they're not, I'm sure there'll be doors that they could lead because I'm not, I have access to a lot of spaces, and I'm grateful for that. That I can go to most places and, blend in a sense. But at the same time, I don't always want to. Like I'm proud of being trans now, and that's
Hmm.
the best. I think that's the most important thing that I would say is I've gone from being transphobic to, literally leaving places in New York City when there were trans people coming up to our tables and things like that, and me just feeling very uncomfortable, sweating, just getting literally hot and feverish, like, and now it's like my Facebook profile picture in the back is the cover photo is the trans flag, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna soon I'll be dating again. It's gonna take a little while with the surgery, but I'll be out there and I'll be able to feel comfortable being myself. you
Yeah.
know,
And that's the
and
victory right there.
that is the victory. I
Yeah.
feel so good in my body right now. I really
Yay.
do.
As
And like
you
I said,
should.
the dysphoria is
Going
minimizing by the
away.
day.
Nice.
By the
Nice. I
day.
love it. I'm so happy to see you aligning with yourself. I
Thank
used
you.
this quote on my other friend Tori. I just interviewed recently, and I'm going to say it again because when I do trainings sometimes and tell my story, I often end with this quote by Anais Nin. I don't know if you're familiar, but it says, "And the day came when the risk to remain tight in the bud became more painful than the risk it took to blossom."
Oh,
Right?
you just Oprah'd me and I fell out. That was wonderful. I love it. I
Right?
love it.
Well, that's a trans person right there, right? Like we get to a
Yeah.
point where it's like just too painful to stay in this tight bud. But then once
Oh
we
my goodness.
blossom
I
and get
look
proud
at
of
my
ourselves, it's
old
just like,
pictures.
woo.
I look at pictures of myself prior to transition and I thought I was fly even then, I will admit.
You were
But
fly.
thank you. But I just could not, I'm like, I was like, even then could see this person in that person trying to blossom
Right.
and seeing that and being here now, it's amazing.
It's who you are.
So yeah, and there's more to be revealed.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
still
right.
learning. I'm still learning who I am in so many different ways, and I do have, those moments that everyone has of, oh my goodness, did I do the right thing? But it's always reinforced in certain ways and like little coincidences. And I'll say this and I'll let you go, but I worked 6 years trying to get the surgery and it was so difficult. I did so many jobs that I hated, telemarketing, fast food. And I got close so many times, made plans, then I would like get fired randomly or lose the job because of illness. And then the pandemic happened and I lost my job because of it. But because of the American Rescue Act, I got free Cobra for 7 months. And KU Med and their amazing team there made sure that I got everything done in 7 months, which is like a year's worth of electrolysis and everything. And so the fact that that happened, that I like lost my job, thereby would have lost my insurance. But because of the pandemic, I was able to get this one piece of me that would make me feel even that much closer to who I'm supposed to be. And I think that's important that people know that it's just a personal decision that helped me personally feel more comfortable in my body. I
That's
know
right.
plenty of trans people who don't go in that direction and feel probably more comfortable than I do even now.
Well, and we're
So,
all different. We all have our different things. And, thank you and for your generosity and willingness to share all of yourself with us.
of course.
Because a lot of that stuff, like, it's none of their business.
No, I know,
Right?
but I love talking about it. And I
I mean,
know,
I love talking about all the things too. And that's why I like this felt so right for me to do the real reveal since I owned the gender reveal party website, because
yeah,
it's like, let's really reveal gender.
I
Like,
really
let's
hope everyone
really,
sees
really
your show.
reveal
Like
gender.
I've
So
seen it more than once, and I mean, I was doing stagehand on one of them.
yeah,
I
right.
was just anything. I just because it's inspiring now to
Thank you.
see other gender non-conforming people blossom. It is
Yes.
inspiring, and it's so inspiring to see someone who has been out and allowed for 30 years. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank
So
you.
hopefully in
Thank you, my
30
friend.
years I'll be, still talking to young trans people. By then they'll be like six
I hope
years
I
old.
still will be too. I'll be in my
Yeah,
80s, but
we'll be working together. We'll
there
be
you go.
working together.
Hopefully be retired by then. So
Yeah,
let you all
me
take
too.
over.
I'm planning on becoming a housewife.
There you go. Nice. Nice. Well, it's always great to see you. Thank you so much for being
Always
here on the
great.
gender reveal party. And we will make sure everybody has your links to your Instagram and all the things, and we'll keep up with you.
All right.
Bye,
Sounds
Tori.
good. Thanks.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Gender Reveal Party podcast. I hope you loved it. And if you did, would you take a second and go do all the things like subscribe, rate, review, tell all your friends? Apparently, if you do that, the podcast platforms are more likely to share it. And if you think these stories are important, please take 3 minutes to just go do that. I'd really appreciate it. Also, I'd love to connect with you on social. On Instagram and Facebook, I'm at the Gender Reveal Party, and on Twitter, I'm at Pryor J. It's a real joy and privilege to bring you this podcast. Come back soon. Love you, bye.